In 1999, a human kidney went for sale on eBay. The bidding went as high as $5.7 million before it was actually canceled by eBay. Why am I bringing this up? You ever wondered what your body's worth? Maybe what your life is worth? Or the rest of your life? We're gonna talk about that today on Mindset. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody, to Mindset. I am Brad Barrett. This is producer Jared. We're gonna be talking about what we talked about in the open. What is your life worth? Now, we're likely, if you've watched us for months now, as we've been starting this show, you know we're gonna take a little bit of a spin on this. But I wanted to bring this up because, I don't know if you guys heard that opening, but pretty wild to think that someone was actually selling their organs.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's not the only time. Researching this, in 2013, a guy named Mark Parisi, Las Vegas guy, tried to participate in a medical study that involved the removal of one of his testicles in exchange for $35,000.
He sold a left nut or a right nut for $35,000.
Tried to.
Shut up.
Left nut, right nut.
That's literally a statement. I've actually used that in my life. I don't know if that's appropriate to say, but I'm like, I would give a left nut for a Chipotle burrito right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you're not
I've
feeling
heard
it
that.
some days.
But would you?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Now that's the point of today's show. Worth is an interesting word that we felt we wanted to bring up today because it's almost like, what is a life worth? It's much more in depth than I think we give it credit for. Like we'll value something. You've heard me say this before, that value is, each person has their own value sets and value propositions for themselves. But like your worth has a lot to do with how you live life subconsciously, and I don't think you realize it. A lot of what we do in life, whether it's down to our own body, into everything else we buy, marketing that tells us we need or want or whatever it is, has to do with money and what we feel is worth it. Again, there's that word again, to us. Now you look at the body component, the structures. I mean, you see someone who's in a financial pinch trying to sell a nut, a testicle for $35,000.
Selling one of the boys.
One of the boys. I mean, as a man, it's like
money.
One of the boys for
Not
35
happening.
grand, dude.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. You can take that out and say, well, what would you do for 350? Put another zero behind it? Probably not. But there's background to that story because I want to know what
You get to a number where I'm getting close to a yes on that one.
Okay.
I got two.
I mean, it's true. Lance Armstrong's rocking around with one, right?
Yeah.
So the point is, like, we all have our own systems, but like, what's interesting about this is, usually you wouldn't bring up a conversation of worth without having some connotation of money. Can we agree on that? Would you agree on that? Like when you hear the word worth, what's your first thought?
Oh, dollar signs.
Right?
Dollar bills, y'all.
So we're gonna take this from a few different angles, and we're gonna start with the components of our body. Let's call it, we're gonna go from small to big, from a physical stature. And I think that's really important because as you see through what we're gonna talk about today on our show, it's really not the parts themselves that matter so much, it's the sum of the parts. We've all heard that before.
Yeah, and that value changes as you go from element to organ to person.
I want to start out with something that I think most people will kind of find interesting. Do you know we have some gold in our system?
I didn't until this show.
I love gold.
Now, by the way, before you go, taking your friend's body for gold here, a 70 kilogram human body contains about 0.2 milligrams of gold. Now, that's pretty insignificant, but it's interesting that it's in our body as an element.
It's so small, it's not visible to the human eye.
Yeah,
If
like-
it was laying out on the table. So
Completely.
not a lot.
So not a lot. So just to be clear, but we were going through some studies here, and we'll put up a whole list here on stuff, but we went through everything on the price-wise between, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, I mean, you name it. Now, I'm not a scientist by any means, so I'm not professing to be that. But it's interesting because the majority of the elements in our body are actually pretty cheap. Now, I'm not gonna go through the whole list because it's excessive.
But it's a lot of elements.
It's a lot of elements, let's put it that
And
way.
the platinum, silver, there's a lot of even precious metals in there.
Precious,
It's
exactly.
pretty cool.
But to me, what stuck out and why I want to bring this out was oxygen. Like, oxygen, we can't survive as human beings without oxygen. Yet, 65% of our body, and it's only worth about 20 cents per kilogram. So it's like less than $10. I highlight this simply to say that values can be misleading. Because I think we would all argue, now this is kind of like, we're being facetious here, right? But like, I think any one of us would be, hey, oxygen's pretty important.
Pretty important.
Now, we mentioned a couple things there. We mentioned some gold. I highlighted oxygen.
I will say I found a cool gold stat. There's not a lot of gold in an individual person.
Yeah.
But somebody kind of did this math that if you took those trace amounts of gold and pulled it out of every single human being on the planet, the value would be somewhere around, this is their numbers, I haven't done this math, so don't quote me, but they said about $115 million.
That's it? So the collective human race,
Yeah.
7-8 billion, whatever we are now,
Yeah.
is worth $115 million.
If we melted down every person in the world,
for gold in particular.
for gold, just the gold, you get about $116 million.
This is getting weird already, and you know what? I'm here for it. We're going to talk about it.
So to your point, the gold value of the human race currently, I think we all agree we're much more valuable than that element.
And that's the thesis of the show, and that's what I want everyone to know. So essentially, on a basic level, like of chemical components, we're not worth much from a dollar perspective, okay? Now, transitioning to our organs, I think we all have more of a relationship with our organs in our body than maybe we do with the elements. So, quick heads up, you are not allowed to sell your organs for transplantation purposes in the United States.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. By the way, anything I'm saying here, this is research stuff. We're not talking about actually doing this. We're just going through the components of this, but I wanted to say that.
Is this one of those moments where you put up like,
Yeah, like a,
do not eat the pizza box,
basically.
or do not sell your organs?
or like on a coffee lid, caution, it's hot. It's
Yeah.
coffee, dummy.
Right.
But anyways,
Don't
go with
sell
me.
your organs,
Don't sell your
please.
organs, obviously, right? Having said that, this is a fun fact. Look it up yourself. But the Iranian kidney market, I got to bring this up, okay? Iran, I don't know why, and I'm just bringing this up for factoid purposes, if you will. Iran is the only country where selling a kidney is legal under a regulated system. Do I have that right?
I read that in multiple sources. Please comment below if that's.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, and I hope all these are wrong. But yeah, you can legally sell, from our research, allegedly, a kidney there.
And outside of the black market of stuff, the American Medical Association has references to what a heart's worth, what a liver's worth, what a kidney is worth, because medically speaking, those are components that human beings need in times of need, and they are out there. People can donate them, but there is a value to them. That's what we want to kind of talk about, really.
Yeah, if anybody's had any kind of organ transplant, you can see the value because you're going to see the bill you get afterward from that. And that's basically what we're going on that.
Correct.
Not a black market price, not, a literally, I walk into 7-Eleven and buy one.
Correct.
These are based off of what, like, they might charge you for that. So it's a rough number.
So with that said, I want to label a few here, and we'll put these up here, but let's talk about it. A heart can range between $57,000 to $131,000. Kidneys, $91,000 to about $115,000, give or take. Liver, $54,000 to $104,000. Pancreas, $110,000 to $112,000. That's an interesting small margin there.
Yeah.
On pancreas.
It's very specific.
Human skin, this was interesting, $10 an inch. Burn victims, things like that. It's interesting, right? Intestines, $107,000. This one I want to bring up because it's interesting. Stomach, $500. It's just interesting, and again, we're finance geeks here, so this is not our element, but it's interesting to note that these are out there, and it's like, and I'm just pointing a couple out here. Why is, and my medical professionals out there watching us can comment on this if you want, but like, why is a stomach technically, now obviously I'm sure it can fetch more in different areas and whatever, but a stomach at $500 and a kidney at $91 on the low end. If I'm not mistaken, you have two kidneys, you only have one stomach.
Here's my theory based on nothing other than my imagination. I feel like because
on today's episode of Unsolicited Commentary, here you go.
A dive into Jared's brain.
Dive into Jared's brain, yeah.
I feel like we could like swap out like a goat stomach, or like
Maybe.
a pig or a monkey or something like that. But I feel like the liver wouldn't transfer. I don't know.
That's an interesting way of putting. That makes sense.
This is probably all terribly like so stupid, but
This is ridiculous, and we know this, but this is obviously art, not science. This is obviously discussion points, but I felt it necessary, at least to start, as weird as it might have been, for us to walk through like the elements of how a body would be described from a value.
from an organ side. And I will say this.
Yeah.
Back to our disclaimer: do not sell. You cannot sell organs, but there are some things we can sell that maybe the body produces.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way. I think it's fun to talk about.
True.
The blood. I saw a rate of 337 per pint of blood.
Yep.
You can sell hair. People sell hair.
Yep.
I saw $70 per every 10 inches of hair.
I'll be candid with you. I was broke as a joke in college, and my buddies and I, we would go donate blood because first off, I felt it was a good thing to do,
Yeah.
right? But for the platelets, you would get paid. And I'm not kidding you. I would go sit on a Friday. This is not a true story. I would go sit on a Friday like 9, 10 a.m. in the morning, have my orange juice, give blood. I get paid $60. That was like my beer money and my like food for the weekend.
I've heard stories of seamen selling that.
This is ridiculous. And we know this, but hear us out, okay? All said and done of the things we mentioned, I'm gonna get to the meat of this because I want to talk about the broad scope of this episode of what are you worth? The average price of a human body is likely to fetch around $500,000 to $600,000. I want to pause on that for a second. Of all the things we just mentioned, all the ranting, all the smiling and the laughing, the joking, whatever. Now, you can make a case that it can be much higher for different things, and don't get into the dramatic of this. It's just kind of a components perspective. If you add up all the parts, about $500,000, $600,000. Now, I'd ask you, whatever financial situation, wherever you're listening to us or watching to us from, I don't know your position but wouldn't you feel like you're worth more than that? If I were to tell you that number, wouldn't you feel like you're worth more than that? The leading question, I know, but.
What if you were saying like, here's a check for $500,000 today? I'd be over the moon ecstatic.
For sure. But in exchange for what?
Exactly. If you were going to say, this is what you're worth, I got to think, man, you're short. You're selling me short on that.
For those of you watching right now, you're like, where are these guys going with this? The point of this matter is literally to say that finances sometimes, right or wrong, can lead us to do gnarly things. Now, again, we're not saying to do any of this, but the point is people have done it. So for us to go into conversations of things that can make money on those kind of things, your value proposition, I highly recommend you learning what you value in your life early. Because if you have an inner worth that's telling you that, hey, I'll just sell feet pics. It's a thing nowadays, apparently.
I've thought about it. I'd be lying if I said I haven't thought about
feet,
it.
though.
They don't. That's why I know
it's
I'm not going to
like
make any money.
$1 a toe for you, like, no, dude.
Nah.
But like, yeah, look, I've heard of it, and my wife and I were talking about it the other day. We were joking at dinner, same thing. Well, and like I hear all these jokes on social media, but like I just immediately go to like, that's weird.
It is.
You know, and it's kind of like, look, you do you, all that kind of stuff, but it's more like the why. Like, why are you doing that? You know what I mean? Like, don't let that kind of stuff replace hard work. And look, everyone's in a hard position. I get it. It's a weird world we live in nowadays. But like, understanding your worth is super important for all of us.
How much are you worth?
I have no idea. How much do you want?
We're worth way more than what we give ourselves credit for. That's my point in this whole thing. God tells us that, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. But if no one else is reminding you right now, let the boys at Mindset tell you, because that's the real truth in life. And we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about philosophy of money. We're going to talk about Roth IRAs. We're going to talk about all that stuff. But you know, at the end of the day, you're the person investing in these items that we're talking about, these assets. You're the person opening up accounts with these things we're talking about. So yeah, if we don't look at you and talk about you, what are we even doing?
There's a verse in Isaiah 43:4 in the NIRV version says, "You are priceless to me. I love you and honor you."
And honor you.
And I just love that because it's no matter what age, no matter what you're doing, you are loved and you are priceless.
Yeah, I think people need to hear that message more and more nowadays.
Absolutely.
We talk about finances and we talk about, you know, the worth being this connotation with money, right? That's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
The reality is you're priceless. For you who formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139.
Yeah, love it.
My daughter, when we moved to Hawaii, she had this, when we went to our church, they had this little sign and it was Psalm 139. And then she comes out screaming after service. She goes, "Dad, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made."
Oh, so cute.
But for any of us with kids, a 3-year-old jumbling the word fearfully around was pretty wild. I was like, "I'm sorry, baby, what are you saying?" But I saw Psalm 139. I'm like, "Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about."
Oh yeah, all those organs, everything, all those elements.
Exactly.
Put together with purpose.
You were knitted together. All those organs, those are priceless to you. Those are yours, man.
Yeah.
Now, I love the benevolence of, and we have actually some colleagues here at our firm who have donated kidneys to family members and things like that. So the benevolence of that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm not trying to disregard that at all.
No.
If you can share a gift with somebody and you're open to that, man, you're literally doing the Lord's work. I will just say that out loud. But I think we want to share some messages like this because I'm not trying to Bible thump you. I'm not trying to evangelize. You can take that however you want to. Just move on if you're offended by it. But the reality is, it's important for you to hear. If you haven't heard it before.
Well, we talk a lot about the IRAs and worth and building wealth, which is very important. But it's not more important than this. If you don't have this side of it, or your self-worth or that side of it, it really doesn't matter.
Correct. Now, for those of you who tuned into this channel and been watching us and you're like, why are these guys talking about all this stuff, but I came in here to learn about a Roth IRA? Maybe some of you. We're not talking about Roth IRA today, but we are talking about that will affect your Roth IRA. If you are not sound in your own worth, you're going to make unworthy financial decisions. I'm going to say that again. If you're not sound, you don't know who you are, you don't have the worth structure within yourself, you're going to make unworthy financial decisions. You're going to get out over your skis on risk. You're going to do things out of your bailiwick, out of your mindset, out of who you are.
Out of your what?
Bailiwick?
What is that?
Isn't bailiwick like a term, like that's his bailiwick? Like his thing, his shtick?
I've never heard.
Did I totally make that up? I swear that's a thing.
No,
Whatever.
That's awesome. I love it. I learned something new.
Yeah, maybe I probably did. I'm not the best with words.
Cool, I love it.
I love it. Look, you're going to end up making decisions that you'll look back on. I've done this too. I'm like, well, that was uncharacteristic. That's what I was going for. You're like, that was uncharacteristic of me. Think about it. Answer this for yourself. Have you made those decisions in your life? I remember looking back on a couple of my 20s where I was like, that was uncharacteristic of me. And I learned from those. I learned from that. I learned where I was operating from a worthy standpoint. I was in some certain times I just got broken up with or something like that, whatever was going on, right? And you start learning from that. But yes, all this that we're talking about today, does it have a financial impact? Absolutely. Your mindset, the psychology of what you bring into the table with your advisor, hopefully, or within your own family and your own financial worth journey that we talk about, yeah, this affects it. Absolutely. Also to the point, very simply stated, that guy who's out there trying to sell a testicle, I want to know the background of what got him into that position to need to think about that. Let alone think about it, act on it. So it's almost the pregame that we're talking about right now before the game.
Yeah.
That's what I'm bringing up here. Now, obviously that's a drastic and dramatic statement of some guy doing that. But like in our own lives, we tend to overspend. We tend to live outside of our means. We've talked about this on the show before. And I would argue from being a financial advisor for 2 decades now that a lot of that has nothing to do with your lack of knowledge around money. It's more the, treat yourself, I deserve this. And again, I'm not saying you don't, but who's telling you that? You or the marketing world? Because the marketing world will say you're not pretty enough, you're not tall enough, you're not big enough, you're not small enough, whatever, put anything else you want in there. On that, right? They will tell you that subliminally, and then all of a sudden it's going to manifest, and this is where worth comes from, friends. So be rooted is my point here. If you're rooted in this kind of stuff, I know I'm getting a little today, but if you're rooted in this kind of stuff, you're going to make better, not just financial decisions, you're going to make better decisions in general.
Life decisions.
Life decisions.
Preach.
This is a life show, baby.
Yeah.
We're going to make life decisions, you're going to make financial decisions, because when I have clients coming in, or call me and we go through stuff, I'm asking a lot of their whys. I've said this before, like what's your why? Why are you doing what you are doing with your money? Now some of my clients that come in, or new clients I should say, they're like, my old advisor never asked me that before. I say, well look, the reason why we have a very high retention rate at our firm here, One Capital Management, is because we want to know who you are. We're not trying to change you, and we're not, by the way, going to profess our opinions or my own personal stuff on you. That's never going to happen. But we want to make sure you at least have the ability, if you haven't done so already, to find out who you are in this money world. And yes, your inner worth, I'm going to call it that, is a very important subject. We made some light of the show today in regards to like some connotations, some things you might not have known, that a body can be worth up to $500,000, right? I think a lot of us would say, I'm worth more than that. And you know what? You should. You should feel that way.
I'm worth a lot more than that, Brad.
Declare and fulfill, baby. You should feel that way. And the point of this whole thing is don't sell yourself short, right? Hey, we hope you enjoyed that today. We did. We had a fun time researching this. We had a fun time talking about it. Friends, just know your worth. That's all we care about. We love you. We care for you. And yes, it has a lot of impact on how you look at money, how you look at investments, and ultimately how you look at your wealth building journey. For our subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing to us each week. For our new subscribers, welcome in. We're very fortunate to be doing this with you every week. We have shorts coming out every Wednesday. We have an episode. Like, comment, share the video. We do appreciate it. And next week, I think we're talking about...
Next week, we're talking about an interesting subject. The value of people like you. What's the value of a financial advisor?
That's actually a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one.
I'm going to take it, I promise you, I'm not going to take it from a biased perspective. I want to bring to you some research on this and what we do for clients. And this actually value is worthy. This is what's a financial advisor worth. You can almost make that connotation. So it plays on today's episode. So we do hope to see you next week. Until then, if you lead with love, it's all going to be okay. See you guys.